Hello, you beautiful people. Today we're going to talk about how the NBA trade deadline could change your fantasy team. So we're going to look at some of the most talked about trade targets in the league and how their fantasy value, as well as the fantasy values of players on the teams that they'd get traded to and from, will change as a result. So yeah, like and subscribe if you want to, and join the Discord in the description if you want to see Kyle Lowry cheeks in this video. We got some hella sus boys in there, so you'll fit right in, and with that being said, let's just start the video. And to start out, what would be a trade deadline video without talking about Victor Oladipo, the most talked about trade target in the league right now, I believe. So we're going to look at three potential suitors for him. These are the teams that I've seen the most rumors concerning Oladipo. The first one's going to be the Heat, and I don't know why the Heat would really trade for him unless they want to win a championship this season, because Oladipo has expressed that he wants to go there, so they could probably just sign him in the offseason. But if we look at this from a fantasy perspective, if he goes to the Heat, I think this helps Oladipo's numbers just because he won't sit out as many games as he has been, because he's on the Rockets and, that 20-game losing streak. Pretty rough, but yeah, I think if he goes to the Heat, Oladipo's numbers should increase. He actually wants to play there, and yeah, he probably won't sit out as much. And if he does go to the Heat, I think this is going to hurt Tyler Hero's numbers, Kendrick Nunn, and Goran Dragic. And it's mainly just due to the ball handling duties. Their usage rates are all going to be slightly less. They probably won't plummet unless you're like Kendrick Nunn. And yeah, I mean, this would really hurt Hero, Nunn, and Dragic if he goes there, so that's definitely something to watch out for. The next team is the Denver Nuggets. I think this also helps Oladipo. I think just getting him out of Houston would really just help his overall fantasy numbers, but I think this definitely hurts Michael Porter Jr. in terms of shot attempts, and it'll probably make a slight dip in Jamal Murray's production just because his usage is going to go down if Oladipo's there. And then the last team we're going to look at is the Knicks, and I think this team would be the most help to Oladipo's fantasy numbers just because we all know Tibbs loves playing his superstars like the entire game. So yeah, I think if Oladipo goes there, that'll definitely help his numbers, and it'll probably hurt RJ Barrett, Derrick Rose, and Emmanuel Quickley. I would probably consider Quickley to be a droppable player in like every format at that point. But it's looking like the most likely trade target is going to be the Heat, and I don't see why the Rockets would keep him. They've been pretty adamant about trading him, so I think this one's definitely a very likely trade target to occur. And if it does, I would definitely try to trade for Oladipo or hold on to him just because I think his value is going to increase if he's on the Heat. And yeah, if he does happen to stay on the Rockets, I think that's just a rip to Kevin Porter Jr.'s fantasy relevance. I think Oladipo will continue to sit a bunch of games like he currently is, and I'd definitely try to move him if the Rockets don't end up trading him. And next up, you're welcome for the picture. It's going to be Big Booty Lowry. And if we look at where he's potentially going to get traded to, we're looking at the Sixers, the Heat, or I think he'll stay with the Raptors. I think those are the three most likely scenarios. And yeah, if he gets traded to the Sixers, I think that's going to hurt Lowry's fantasy value. I don't think it'll increase it just because of the new ball handling of Ben Simmons, and then there's Embiid getting his post touches as well, so I think that'll hurt Lowry's value. I think if he gets traded there, it's also going to hurt Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, and Seth Curry. I think it will help Embiid and Simmons if he goes there, just to give them like a bit of additional spacing to work with and more creation to get them some more open shots, but I think it definitely hurts the guards that are on Philly's team currently. And then yeah, if we move on to the Heat, I think it's going to be similar to if Oladipo goes to the Heat. It's going to help Lowry, I think, but it's also going to hurt Hero, Nunn, and Dragic in the process. So if he does get traded to the Heat, if any main ball handler goes to the Heat, I would try to move Hero, Nunn, or Dragic, or maybe even consider dropping them if you're in like an 8 or 10 team league. And then yeah, if we go on to the third scenario, which is he stays with the Raptors, I think evidently his numbers will probably stay where they're at. I don't really see why the Raptors would want to keep him other than just that his legacy of what he's done for their team. I think after this losing streak, if he does stay, then I think his numbers could honestly increase, actually, just because they might decide, hey, we want to be as good as we can for this season, just because. But if I'm the Raptors, I'm definitely looking at trading Lowry, just because he's going to be a free agent in the summer, and you might as well get as much as you can for him. And then just a little tack on, just to stick in Toronto, we're going to talk about Norman Powell, and I don't even know what teams to put here, because there's been reports that there's as many as 10 teams interested in trading for him. So I don't really know who to put in the video just because there's so many potential options or so many hypothetical routes this could go down. So I'm just going to say if Norman Powell does get traded, I think his value will probably increase no matter where it is, just because he's going to get more minutes. The Raptors haven't really been using him as efficiently as they could have been the past few seasons. I mean, not that it mattered, they won their championship, but Norman Powell is a proven 20-point per game scorer. I think any night he can give you buckets, and I think most teams that would be interested in him really could use a scoring punch, so I think his minutes will increase. And in default league, he's only averaging 30 points per game right now in fantasy terms, and I would definitely expect that to go up to around 35 if he does get traded. And even if he doesn't and Kyle Lowry gets moved, that's also going to help Norm's fantasy value. So yeah, Norms is really dependent on what trades go down, but if he does stay in Toronto and there's some other roster shakeups, his value is going to increase. And if he does get traded, I think his value is going to increase anyway. So really just a win-win with Norman Powell. Next up is another highly talked about trade target, and it's going to be Lonzo Ball. So the three teams that I've chosen that I think could make trades for him is like the most rumors I've seen is about with the Bulls, the Hawks, or the Clippers, or he'll stay in New Orleans. And the main reason the Pelicans want to trade him is just because they don't really want to pay him at the end of the season when his contract's up. So yeah, it's nothing against Ball as a player, but it's just they don't really want to have to pay him that much money. So yeah, if we look at it from the Bulls' perspective, it depends if Kobe White is in the deal. I feel like he would be. I think the Bulls should trade him for Lonzo if they can. But yeah, let's just say hypothetically Kobe White is traded, Lonzo's on the Bulls. I think it'll help boost Zoe's numbers for sure. And I think it'll help Levine and Laurie out as well, just because they'll have more playmaking around them. I mean, it might hurt Thad Young's numbers a little bit, but just in terms of less playmaking opportunities. But I really doubt it. I think if Lonzo does end up on the Bulls, it's going to help everyone's fantasy value on that team especially. And then if we look at it from the Pelicans' perspective, if Lonzo does get traded, I mean, maybe this makes Eric Bledsoe relevant again, but I doubt it. He's just hasn't been looking that great this season. I think it definitely boosts Nickeil Alexander-Walker's numbers, Josh Hart as well. So yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for if Zoe gets traded. I keep an eye on Alexander Walker and Josh Hart. Then if we go on to the Hawks, I don't know why this is a rumor. I don't know why the Hawks want Lonzo. I don't like the trade. I think it hurts Lonzo's fantasy numbers. Definitely dips into Trey's production as well in terms of fantasy value. And I really just can't see this helping anyone on the Hawks' fantasy value that much. I mean, like maybe Capella or Collins in terms of lobs, but they're already getting a shit ton of lobs from Trey anyway, so I can't really see it boosting it that much. So yeah, it remains to be seen. I don't really like this Hawks trade, but we'll just go on to the Clippers. If the Clippers do get Lonzo Ball, I think it helps their team, obviously, in like a real-life perspective, but for fantasy, I think it's going to hurt Lou Will. It's going to hurt Lonzo too, honestly, and then probably going to hurt Pat Bev and Luke Kennard as well. Definitely would consider Luke Kennard and Pat Bev very droppable in like all leagues if Lonzo does end up going there. And then if he does happen to stay on the Pelicans, I'd expect this similar production to what we're getting right now out of him. I think it's probably likely that he does get moved, but you never know with the NBA trade deadline, so I guess we'll just find out. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get into the last player of the video. So if you made it this far into the video, drop a W in the comments and join the Discord if you're interested, man. We got a lot of things going on, a lot of plans for next year in terms of making our own fantasy leagues for subscribers and everything. So I definitely recommend joining that if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, the last player in the list is going to be Aaron Gordon. So Aaron Gordon has been linked to the Boston Celtics. As you know, if you've watched this channel, I mention it in every single video, so I won't go too much into it. But I feel like if Aaron Gordon does go to the Celtics, and hell, we'll just throw Evan Fournier in as well. I didn't want to give Evan Fournier his own slide because no one wants to look at that hairline for more than seconds than they have to. But yeah, if they both go to the Celtics, I think it definitely hurts their fantasy value just because their usage rates aren't going to be as high. And I think overall it just makes the Celtics across the board's production dip. Nothing crazy in terms of like Tatum and Jalen. Like they're still going to get their ISOs, but Tice, I think his value is going to increase if this trade decrease, if this trade happens. And then same with like Marcus Smart and maybe Kemba, but I doubt it. And then, yeah, if the other team that I want to talk about is if Gordon goes to Minnesota, I think this will help his fantasy numbers just because he'll accrue a few more defensive stats, and he's going to have a lot of spacing with D'Lo and Towns going on. He won't have to create as much off the dribble, and I think that's not really his game, so that'll kind of help his fantasy numbers out as well. And then, yeah, and then the last trade I want to talk about is if Aaron Gordon goes to the Trailblazers. I think that'll also help his fantasy value. He's going to get a lot more open looks there, and again, he won't have to create off the dribble as much because that's more Dame and CJ's responsibility on the team. And yeah, I mean, then there's also the chance that he stays, and then, I mean, who knows with the Magic, they say every trade deadline they're going to move Gordon, and then he's stuck there, so maybe they'll just continue to waste the talent as they always do. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap up the video. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I know we're all excited for the trade deadline, so leave me some comments of players you want to see get traded. And yeah, I want to thank you guys very much for watching again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.